Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement. Good day, St. Lucia, and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. My name is Phillip Sydney. Today we are discussing cocoa production. Yes, the same cocoa you drink over the years, the same chocolate you used over the years, and of course the chocolate that you eat, you're given to your better halves, if I may say so. Yes, the same cocoa. We grow and we, of course, export the same cocoa. Today with me is Mr. Kemuel Jn Baptiste, who is the Chief Extension Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, and he's responsible for the Extension and Advisory Services Division in the Ministry of Agriculture. There are many regions in St. Lucia, many extension officers that work with farmers, and they work with those farmers who are growing cocoa in specific ecological areas. Welcome to the program, Mr. Jn Baptiste.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. And we're talking about cocoa. And guess what I had for breakfast this morning? A nice hot cup of cocoa.
There's nothing better than that, you know. You know, it takes me back a bit, you know. Eat fresh.
Yes,
St. Lucia's best. Definitely.
And it's a good time too, because this is Creole Heritage Month. And everybody's familiar with cocoa and
of course your cocoa stick and your chocolate.
And all of that.
Yeah, my mom taught me to make this thing, and I make a mean chocolate.
So that, I wouldn't doubt it.
Definitely.
So it's a good time to be talking about cocoa.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But let's step a bit backwards. Let's look at the history of cocoa in St. Lucia. I'm sure you know. Maybe you may be aware, or maybe your grandfather is aware.
Yes.
But cocoa has been around for a while.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
And you had sugarcane, you had bananas. Take us back to a little history of cocoa.
When you read the literature, it basically tells you that, you know, cocoa goes as way back to the days of Columbus, when he picked it up from Central America, took it back to Spain. But in the Caribbean, Trinidad, for example, we're talking about the 1700s. But really and truly, what happened with cocoa is, with the decline of sugar in the islands, because there were other sources of sugar, cocoa emerged. And then somewhere in the early 1900s, with the development of chocolates and various cocoa products in the UK, cocoa emerged as one of those crops that provided an export opportunity. And so we launched into the production of cocoa. If a person was around, let's say around the 1950s, 1960s, these were the times the estates were well established. By then the estates were well established, and they moved away from tobacco, they moved away from sugarcane. And if you go to these estates, let's say on the southwestern and the western parts of St. Lucia, you will see a lot of these estates still well cropped with cocoa. And so basically that's the story in terms of how we ended up getting into cocoa. What happened then, we used bananas and plantain as a cover crop because it requires shade. And interestingly enough, as the banana market emerged in the UK, farmers went and cut back some of the cocoa. So if you look at the figures, you'll notice that there was a drop in cocoa production and exports. And then as the banana market began to decline, and the price of cocoa now is soaring, there's a move back into cocoa production. One of the reasons why cocoa is really important for St. Lucia, because we are one of the few countries of the world, few regions of the world where we produce what is called fine flavored cocoa. Yes, there are generally three major types: the Forastero, the Criollo, and then there's a hybrid which we call the Trinitario. The Forastero types are those that you find in Africa and so on, and these are what we call bulk cocoa. They produce large quantities, but what is really required for fine chocolates and for the high-priced chocolates is the Criollo and the Trinitarios.
And this is what we have.
And this is what we have in St. Lucia, and this is what we've been growing for the last few hundred years.
Yeah, because if you go back a bit, I remember just coming into extension, there were two fermentaries, and they were working quite well.
Yes.
There was one in the Mabuya Valley, so a lot of cocoa was grown in the Mabuya Valley, and in Soufre.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Farmers were bringing wet cocoa to be well, the primary process for cocoa before it was taken to the St. Lucia Agricultural Association for export, you know, in bags.
Yes.
And that was a big thing at the time. Of course, and there was at that time bananas were still there.
Yeah.
You know, so there was still this marriage, you know, with
bananas and cocoa. Because what happened in the early days when we began exports, we had a central agency, which was the St. Lucia Agricultural Association, that was responsible for all exports. And that was a policy that was adopted by governments here and some of the other islands as well. One agency exported all cocoa. But what happened over time, the export market, you know, went haywire, and there was free markets. So now you have more than a few persons doing exports, which is really good because it means that there are greater opportunities for getting high price on the particular cocoa products.
But even locally too, Dr. Newshot, I remember growing up, I mean, my dad had a few cocoa trees.
Yes.
And it was basically for home consumption.
Yes.
I mean, I remember going there, getting the pod, cracking it, you know, and then putting it out to dry, you know, and then, you know, patching it, and then you pong it, you know, in a pilon.
Mortar and pestle.
You know, and then that will make our cocoa stick, and that we had for years. You understand?
And government over the years has invested heavily. A lot of people may not know, but we invested in solar dryers, for example. So if a person goes to PT Dale's estate in Soufre, you'll see a solar dryer that was installed by the ministry. Fermentaries, we helped some of the estates to set those up. Our most recent investment there's a fermentary that has been set up, where the building is set up in Angers, and it is all towards supporting the cocoa industry.
Yes, right.
As we go, briefly, what we want to let our audience know is that cocoa is not just like ordinary crops where you pick and you take it to the market. It requires a certain measure of processing, basic processing.
Definitely.
And so a farmer would generally harvest the crop and would do what is called fermenting. That would happen over a few days, and after the fermentation process is dried, and then in some cases polished and selected and so on. The difference, a lot of our people who do the cocoa sticks do not necessarily use fermented cocoa. But one of the things I would like to encourage those persons who are doing cocoa sticks is to try the fermented cocoa. Most persons will know it as, they say, your grandparents would have tied it up in a bag or something.
Bag, yes.
That's right.
Yes.
So it's important to send it through that fermentation process, because that is when you bring out the real true cocoa type,
the nutrients and everything,
type of flavor that would enrich the beverages and so on that you make with the cocoa. So it's one of the things that our audience is encouraged to ensure that they undertake, the fermenting of the cocoa. So basically the history is the crop came in, government invested, because back in those days it was development of agriculture, so a lot of developmental investments. Investments in planting material, investments in technical support services, investments in some infrastructure. And as we go on in our discussions, we're going to see there's been a transition in recent times that the private sector has come on board and they're making significant investments, which is very, very plausible. And we probably will talk about that.
Yeah, because I remember going back at the propagation station at Union. That's why it is called Cocoa Station.
Yes.
Because they were propagating cocoa vegetatively, using a branch, and then you use your root medium for rooting.
Yes.
Okay, and then that was in those days. I think it was actually given to the farmers free. To encourage them to get back into cocoa. So cocoa has some real history
Very
here.
Long history,
And the other thing too, what I've noticed is if you go into the central market, and even now at the supermarket, the cocoa stick is becoming a big thing. You know, and I think that's another area, another niche market. I think we farmers have a chance to explore.
Since you mentioned markets, it might be useful to perhaps talk a little bit about the markets. And like I said, back in the early days, our major focus was on the exports, and to a lesser extent, cocoa sticks locally. But in recent times, the cocoa stick has expanded. We have regional markets. The French territories in particular are buying large quantities of it. One of the things that we need to do is to map it, because a lot of the cocoa is being utilized, but we're not too sure where they're going because we have the hucksters, the middlemen. So this is one of the things as a ministry that we also have to do. One of the beautiful things in terms of recent developments is that we have become a manufacturer of cocoa products, of products that use cocoa as the raw material. We actually producing chocolate bars right here in St. Lucia. And that is very, very significant, because it means that we're not only benefiting from export sales of a raw material. Now our private investments, local private investments, are looking at producing the final product right here.
And that's the market change, eh?
That is right.
Yes,
There's a shift, and that is because of private sector investments, which is what we really want to do as a government.
Okay, well, hold that point. We are just going to our first break.
All right.
You are watching Agriculture on the Move. We're due for our first break. Stay tuned.
Agriculture, one of the pillars of St. Lucia's economic development, creating opportunities for earning a living for the farmer and his family. From the field to the kitchen, the St. Lucians are finding creative ways of using fruits, crops, and vegetables grown locally, from local seasonings to special brews, from aquaculture to the cultivation of local herbs for export. A strong agriculture industry strengthens the economy. The country needs your support, so buy local.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move, with me, Kemuel Jn Baptiste, the Chief Extension Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're talking cocoa production. Kemuel, we just dealt with history of the cocoa production in St. Lucia. Let's look at what's happening now. Let's look at the ministry's involvement as it relates to the establishment of cocoa. Give us some insight into what's happening.
Like I said, ministry has traditionally invested, and we are still investing. Our traditional investments have been in infrastructure. We've done a lot of expansion. And why is government investing in cocoa? There are several benefits to having cocoa as a crop. Of course, there are the economic benefits. We're talking about livelihoods. It's an opportunity for farmers to make some money. It's an opportunity for us to have an export crop. Export earnings are beneficial to the country and community. The environmental benefits. Our country has been suffering since the days of Hurricane Thomas, the December 13th trough, and other storms. We've been seeing a lot of land slippage, a lot of land movements. One of the things that cocoa does, and most of our cocoa is grown as an agroforestry crop. By that I mean it's not grown just all by itself. You have shade crops, you have fruit trees. In many cases, when you go to an estate, right in there you'll see oranges, you'll see avocados and so on.
Yeah, an orchard.
An orchard. And so basically what it does, it's an agroforestry system that protects the forested cover areas, the natural forest, but also it covers the soil. It provides covering for your soil. It reduces soil erosion. It reduces temperatures and that sort of stuff. And so cocoa as a crop that protects the environment is something that is really, really, really welcome. The other thing that is useful are the health benefits. Cocoa is high in antioxidants and many other things that I may not be the best person to talk about, but a lot of persons are aware of the benefits of cocoa as one of those beverages or products that could be used to improve health. We get cocoa butter out of it.
That's right.
And a lot of the fish oil products like creams and so on. Another useful thing is the social benefits. If we are able to create livelihoods in the rural areas, then we reduce rural-urban drift. Persons could stay in the rural communities and be gainfully employed. We reduce the chances of these criminal activities that we see emerging.
You develop a cottage industry.
That's right. So persons have an opportunity to create a livelihood. There's no need to run to cities or to torment everybody else for a dollar or two. You get involved. The other thing that has emerged with cocoa as well that is really useful for us, excuse me, is that what is called recreational agriculture, or rural tourism. We have a lot of visitors coming to these estates now, and they want to see where this chocolate is coming from. They want to know what's the source of it. And so guess what? Some of our private persons have gone on, and within the cocoa estates and orchards, they've created some cottages. So now you could come and relax in a cocoa estate.
Yes.
You could see Fondue is one of those.
Yes.
Mon Kubawi estate,
Correct.
Hotel Chocolat, all of these. You could come in and relax in an atmosphere where there's cocoa, there's chocolate being produced. You could walk through a nice, cool canopy. You could pick the fruits. You could see how it is dried, processed,
and of course you can even suck the
There you go. Yeah, you could go
you
on
see this nice fluffy thing on it. On
the thing that we did traditionally
as
children.
As kids.
Yeah.
I think the tourists, they like it too.
They love it.
Yes,
and even that has become a byproduct. We have what is called vinegar, cocoa vinegar is coming out of that. And so all these benefits, the health benefits, the economic benefits, the
Recreation
environmental,
benefits, the whole
recreation.
thing, yes.
All these are reasons for us as a government and as a country to invest in cocoa production. And this is among the many reasons why we encourage farmers to get back into the production of this crop. Particularly with the rural tourism thing. I mean, we need to have a touristic product that is differentiated. Everybody has the sea, sun, and whatever. If we could have something slightly different, life in the orchard,
yes.
or life on an estate.
That's right.
It's different, it's attractive, it's beautiful, and it's among the many reasons why we are encouraging persons to go back into production. The other thing too, it traditionally was grown on estates. In more recent times, we have a lot more small farmers. There are a lot of farmers who came out of bananas, right? So these persons, they came out of bananas, and they had a few fruit trees, breadfruits, mangoes, avocados, but they don't have a real reason to go back because these crops are seasonal. With the introduction of cocoa, what happens is that now these farmers have an opportunity to go back to these farms. The citrus and so on provides cover for the cocoa.
Right.
The cocoa now gives them twice a year harvest that they can use. And it's a reason to go back to the farm. It's a reason not to abandon it, because the abandonment of the farm means that it's left vulnerable. It's left vulnerable to land slippage. It's left vulnerable to the elements. And so one of the reasons why we encourage persons, for example, places like Maho, we've seen a lot of the destruction in terms of land slippage. So one of the reasons why we are promoting cocoa is to get persons back into those estates in an agroforestry kind of a production system that would protect the environment, that would protect the soil, the lands, systems, and so on, and give the farmer a livelihood opportunity.
But what's happening now? Okay, what is the ministry doing in terms of assisting farmers in terms of establishment of new fields and give me a little idea of the rehabilitation of those old fields?
Yeah. Ministry of Agriculture has always been involved in rehabilitation and expansion. Persons might know the name Cumberbatch, for example, from the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
So this was a guy who was all cocoa. But it didn't stop there. We started an expansion program in 2008. We're looking at expanding by 300 acres and expanding by 100 acres and rehabilitating about 300 acres. It so happened that we run into Hurricane Thomas, and it kind of halted that process. By then, we had time to establish some 80-something acres, and all this planting material was actually given to the farmers free of charge. So the farmers got this planting material, they put it onto their estates, and there was a team that was contracted that went about, and what we did demonstrations. So we did anywhere between a half acre and 1 acre, showing you how to prune the trees, how to clean them up, how to spray them, and that sort of stuff. But even more recently, we had this program which was funded by the European Union Global Climate Change Alliance through the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, which looked at originally we were looking at establishing 14 hectares of cocoa. We eventually ended up establishing about just under 12,000 plants. And again, these were given to the farmers free of charge. Along with the 12,000 plants, we also supplied farmers with 3,000 fruit trees. These fruit trees are designed to provide shade later on in the future. And so these are investments that government is sourcing from different supporting agencies and making available to the farming community as a means of saying, look, we want you to get back into this crop. This crop has potential. This is a crop that would outlive us as individuals. So it means that it's looking at succession in terms of those who come after us, have a farm and have a livelihood to come back to.
Yeah, added to that, I think Hotel Chocolat also have a program where they giving farmers planting material to actually grow for them and to produce for them. Yeah. So in kind of a hand in glove with what the ministry is doing.
Yes.
At least we have a private sector driven, exercise.
What the private sector is also doing, the private sector is looking at what is called single source chocolates. So they're very, very particular about the kinds, the varieties of cocoa. So they're grafting the cocoa plants. In the process of grafting...
Hold on, grafting.
We'll come back to
yes, we'll come back to that point. Yes, we are watching Agriculture on the Move. Due for another break. Come back soon.
St. Lucia is blessed year-round with an abundance of fruits. But do you know that most of them go to waste? Here's an opportunity to invest either from a small to a large-scale agro-processing enterprise. You can contact the Ministry of Agriculture for further information.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. Kemuel, we were talking about Hotel Chocolat,
Yes.
who came on board a few years ago in St. Lucia, and they saw reasons to come because I think they have realized that we have the flavored cocoa, and of course they can export and actually get chocolate made. But the good thing is they are going to be making chocolate here in St. Lucia, and I think they have been doing so. But the other thing too is that I was so taken aback because I was told that they use cocoa in because there is a hotel there, and they're using cocoa in everything that they do. In the kitchen, everything is cocoa. So you're talking about seafoods cocoa, steaks cocoa, the whole work, and then you have the spa, it's cocoa. So you can actually bathe in cocoa. So I'm very happy. So you're talking about that whole value chain, the whole added. So take us through that.
There's been some beautiful developments when it comes to the use of cocoa at different levels. It might be useful at this point to mention that the Ministry of Tourism, or the Tourist Board, I think, has what is called Chocolate Heritage Month. I think that started way back in about 2012. Originally, it was being celebrated around October. I'm not too sure for what the reason for the shift, but it's currently being celebrated in August. And along with that, basically, this festival is looking at honoring the legacy of cocoa in St. Lucia. I mean, we've had a long tradition of cocoa and so on. And so during that 1 month, it is designed to give special holiday packages to persons who are looking for all things cocoa. But along with that, a number of the resorts that are participating, they would have some kind of a cocoa product. So it might be a chocolate, it might be some mousse, it might be some sort of a cocoa experience, and that is really remarkable. In mentioning the developments with the Rabot Estate, which is what now we call Hotel Chocolat, what this particular private entity has done is it has set up, like many of the other estates, small cottages, but there's a primary focus on setting up a chocolate factory, which has not materialized yet. But in a bid to ensure that the raw material is there, they have gone ahead and provided planting material to some farmers or persons who are willing to get into gentleman's contracts with them at a subsidized price. The other thing about this planting material is it's grafted, because they're producing they're producing specialty chocolates that they want to put certain claims on. So it is organic, it is coming from a single source and that sort of stuff. And persons are encouraged to participate. So along with what the ministry is doing to promote it, this other institution is also organization is also participating. Along with that, we have a number of other active players. For example, a lot of persons may not be aware of Asmame Estate, which is attached to the Anshasni Resort. Anshasni Resort is also now producing a local chocolate bar. It is called, I think, Nick Chubes called 70% dark organic chocolate. Okay. The thing is so good and so expensive, you couldn't even get it on the supermarket shelf in St. Lucia.
It's expensive.
It's very expensive. What that particular development has done is that estate is now purchasing cocoa from local producers. But even more beautiful is they're doing their own fermenting and everything, to the point that one of the estates that has fermenting facilities is selling wet cocoa to this manufacturer. But here's the even more beautiful part. These manufacturers are buying wet cocoa at an amazing price of $2.75 per pound. Now, if anybody knows anything about cocoa, it takes 3 pounds of wet cocoa to get 1 pound of dry fermented cocoa. So when a person pays you $2.75 per pound, that's almost what, $10. When you do the conversion, that's almost $10 for 1 pound of dried cocoa.
Wow.
And for me, that is really, really, really remarkable. The other thing to it means that not all farmers now need to go and set up fermenteries. If a manufacturer is willing to buy wet raw cocoa from you, just sell the wet cocoa and avoid having to make all these investments in fermenting and drying and that sort of stuff. And so some of these developments have enriched the experience. We still have players like the Unionville Estate. They're still majorly involved in exports. And of course, they export into the world's finest chocolate company in the US and so on. And so we have some of these major players. And of course, not forgetting the hucksters. Yeah. A lot of the smaller producers, particularly in areas like Maho, Miku, and the uplands of Vieux Fort, a lot of their cocoa goes into partial fermenting and, of course, drying that is being used for cocoa sticks. I think I mentioned it earlier on. We do a lot of exports to the French territories, but we need to map it out, one, and we need to formalize it. a lot of these exchanges are not necessarily formalized, and it's one of the things that we need to do at the Ministry of Agriculture. So what I want to say to persons who are thinking of getting involved, there's a high price on cocoa. I mean, never have we heard of almost $10 per pound for dried processed cocoa.
Yeah, and don't forget Fondue also is involved, and Fondue is producing cocoa sticks.
Yes.
That's all they do. And
That's right.
I think they also have what they call it, a little retail.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
in Soufrière,
yes.
right? A supermarket. And then but you were telling me, you know, I mean, that don't stay on the shelves at all.
Exactly.
So there is a local demand for cocoa sticks.
There's also the Monkubawi estate has what is called cocoa vinegar. And so they're using the pulp that comes off the beans, and they're creating vinegar. So these are some of the developments. It's really exciting, I think. And it shows the sort of development and move that we would like to see in agriculture, where government over the years has invested in a lot of basic infrastructure, expansion and so on. And now the private sector has jumped on board to get into the manufacturing. That is the only way to really go forward in ensuring that farmers get, you know, premium for the price for the beans and that sort of stuff.
Quickly, what are the challenges?
Majorly, cocoa is a sort of crop that requires a lot of land space. Because there has been shifts in the land tenure patterns and land use patterns, and you'd have heard me say earlier on that a lot of cocoa was cut down. They were not cut down only because of bananas. Some of the estates, if you go to them, you see they would have put down some of the cocoa to put maybe warehousing and that sort of stuff. So the changes in land use patterns are causing a lot of intense problems for cocoa as it stands. Another thing is the aging farmer population. We are living in a society where people, they know what they want and they want it now. You plant a cocoa plant today, you will not get any pods before maybe 18 to 24 months. And that tree will not come into full bearing maybe about 4 or 5 years. And so a lot of persons are not willing to wait that long. Not only that, the opportunity cost of land. What can I do with that same land in 4 years?
4 years, 5 years' time.
As against waiting for it to grow. And so these are some of the issues that we as a nation need to look at. But like I said, the land use patterns and what we as a nation want might give some direction.
What I think we need to emphasize now is that there is room for cocoa in St. Lucia.
Yes.
Farmers should be made aware. Youngsters coming into agriculture should be made aware. Yes, that is another commodity in the whole diversification basket that we're pushing in St. Lucia. Kemuel, well, thank you.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on the program today.
We have had a nice little program. To let people know what's happened to cocoa.
I'm hoping that there are lots of persons asking questions. I hope they come on board.
Call the ministry.
Yes, call the ministry and we'll provide the technical support services.
Thanks. You're watching Agriculture, or you have been watching Agriculture on the Move. I would like to thank you, the viewers, for viewing the program. Coming to the ministry, call and to get more information on cocoa production. Thank you to the team of NTN for allowing us to come in here to get this program recorded. Until then, I'm Phillip Sydney saying goodbye and see you again.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.